All right, here we go with a naming compounds video over the nomenclature for molecular compounds, the naming system for molecular compounds. Remember, these are compounds that involve nonmetals being bonded with other nonmetals, right? These are covalently bonded structures here. So over here I have a list of prefixes. The worksheets that I'm going to give you also have these lists of prefixes. So of course you can find them on the internet or whatever. But here's the list of prefixes we would use: the mono, di, tri, so on, so on, and so on. Okay. The naming system or the nomenclature for molecular compounds is really quite simple. All we do is we just name the first element, and we name the second element using ide, I-D-E, as the ending. So we cut off the ending of chlorine and we change it to chloride, from oxygen to oxide, right? So we just take that last part out and put IDE, ide, in its place. And then we use prefixes to tell how many we have of each of the elements that's present. So we put a prefix on both the first element, the first word, and the second element, the second word, okay? The only time we do not use a prefix, there's one time we don't use a prefix, and we do not use a prefix mono on the first element. So if there's only one of the first elements, then we just say what that element is, okay? If there's more than one, then we would use a prefix for the first element as well, okay? So we'll look at a couple examples here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go, given the name, write the formula, and then we'll do a couple examples where, given the formula, write the name, okay? So the first example we got here is if we have carbon monoxide, okay? So carbon monoxide, all right? So the first thing I'll point out to you is technically mono is M-O-N-O, and oxygen would start with another O, but we're not doubling up the O's here. It just would look odd, and I don't even know anyhow. So it's just carbon monoxide, all right? So in this case, carbon, there's no prefix on carbon, which automatically tells me that I just have one carbon. So I would just write the symbol for carbon. Carbon is a C, and there's one of them, so I don't have to put that one there, all right? That one is understood. And then I would write the symbol for oxygen. Mono is the prefix, I is the ending. That OX tells me I'm dealing with oxygen, oxide, right? So I got oxygen, and since there's only one of these oxygens, then my formula is simply just CO. CO, capital C and capital O, right, is carbon monoxide. Pretty simple, okay? My next example is if I had something like this. This is sulfur tetrafluoride, okay? So my first element is going to be sulfur. My second element is going to be fluorine, right? My second element is going to be fluorine. I know it's a nonmetal and a nonmetal. The fact that it is a nonmetal tells me that I'm dealing with a molecular compound, right? So when I go to name that or write the formula for that, I would just write simply the symbol for sulfur. Once again, there's no prefix on the sulfur, right? Meaning that would be there's just one of them, all right? And then fluorine is a tetra, right? So tetra would be 4, so we would say SF4, like so. Okay? I'll give you another example very similar to that. If we take and we have, using these same two things, if we say disulfur tetrafluoride. Okay, so I can see here that now I've got a di, meaning I have 2 sulfurs, and then tetrafluoride. Once again, tetra would be 4 of these fluorides, which is stands for fluorine, right? So we would just simply say we have S2 disulfur, right? And then fluorine, it's a tetrafluoride, so that would be F4. Okay, disulfur tetrafluoride. All right, so there's a few examples like that. Now we're going to flip it around. We're going to start with the formula, and we're going to write the name given the formula. So first one we'll look at is NBr. So don't forget capital N, and the next letter is a capital, so that tells me that this is an element right by itself, right? And the capital B lowercase r means these two go together for the symbol of this element, right? So nitrogen is N, right? So I just named the first element. The first element is nitrogen. So nitrogen, there's no prefix since it's mono. There's only one nitrogen, so there's no number back here, right? It's understood 1. So I'm not going to say mono nitrogen to start it off. I'm just going to say nitrogen. And then my second word would be Br. If you look on your periodic table, group 17, down the 4th period, I think, is your bromine, but we're going to change it to bromide. We take the I-N-E and change it to an I-D-E, we go bromide, right? But in this case, there's 3 of them, right? So it's not just nitrogen bromide, it's actually nitrogen tribromide. Now you don't have to erase like I did or whatever, but you got your nitrogen bromide, right? But there's 3 of them, so it's a tribromide. 1 nitrogen, 3 bromides, right? There's a 1 here, so it's telling you 1 of those. There's a 3 on this, so they're telling you have 3 of those. Nitrogen tribromide. Okay? We'll do one more real quick. These videos should all be pretty short for this naming stuff. Last one we'll do is SO2. So I look on my periodic table and I say, okay, what is S and what is O? Once again, these are both capital letters. These are 2 separate elements here, right? So the first element, S, is sulfur. There's just 1 of them. Remember, if there's just 1 of the first, I don't put the mono, so it's just sulfur. And then I have oxygen that have 2 of them. So then I'm going to start with a di here. So I'm going to say di, since there's 2 oxygens, and ox, change the ending to I. If you're worried a little bit about how the spelling of it, like what part of it I'm taking off, if I take off too many letters, if I put back to it, don't worry about that. Get the ending right, get the prefix right, do your best to do that. Of course, you can look it up on the internet, or maybe you can look at other examples where it's had the name written somewhere. You'll probably find dioxide in other places, so you can figure out how to spell it. But don't worry about if we get the spelling wrong, because there's a couple times where it is a little bit weird that it takes off a few more letters or it leaves a few more letters than what you would think. But for the most part, you just kind of break it down to its syllables, and that last syllable is you're pulling off and putting the IDE. So if you elementary school, you can clap it out or whatever. I was never any good at that, but maybe you can do it. Okay, so this is the nomenclature for naming molecular compounds. It's just simply writing the first element, writing the second element, putting prefixes on each of those elements, and changing the second element, the ending of the second element to "ide." That's it. Okay, and we're done with that. All right, on to the next one.